Hello guys, this is Aditya Anand and today we'll be talking about some of the coding questions um, for Python. As we have already covered most of the basics of Python, so we can directly dive into the questions. So these are the 15 questions that I have selected, which will cover which will refresh most of the basics that we have covered earlier in a little bit more depth. So first, directly let's move on to the first question. Find the sum of all elements in a list. So for this, first of all, what we need is a list. So let's create a list. My list, we have numbers like 1, 4, 2, 5 and 7, let's say. So the sum of this list is 1 plus 4, 5, 5 plus 2, 7, 7, 5, 12 and 7, 19, right? So the let's first run this cell, okay, and insert a cell below. Yes. So what would be the most naive algorithm that you can think of for finding the sum of elements in a list? First of all, uh, you will try to find the sum of these two numbers, right? 4 and 1, that is 5, and you'll try to add 2 to whatever was the sum of the first two numbers, right? So it becomes 7, and then you will try to add 5 to whatever was the sum of the first three numbers, and so on, right? So let's code this idea. First, what we want is a result variable that will store the sum, okay, and the result variable will contain my list of 0th index and my list 1th index. Okay, so this was what we thought. First we'll sum up these two and then we'll keep adding the rest of the elements. Fine. So for that purpose we need a for loop or maybe a while loop. Let's use a for loop for now. For I in range, we want to start from the second index, right? 0, 1 and 2. From the index 2 we want to start, and we want to go up to the end of the list. Okay, so we want to go up to the length of my list, right? The length of my list will be 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and we want to go up to less than 5, right? Because the index will be 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So 4 is less than 5, and exactly we want to go up to there, and we want this I value to increment by 1 at a time, right? So we do not need to write the step, as we have already learned that by default the step size is 1. So we will keep adding result to my list of index I, okay, and we'll send it back to result, and finally what we'll do is we will print result outside the for loop, because if we print the result inside the for loop, the result at every step will be printed, but we don't want the result at every step, we want the final result, so we'll print the result outside the for loop. See, we get 19 here. So let me just explain it to you. See, my list of index 0 corresponds to this value, right? And my list of index 1 corresponds to this value. We'll add them up, so the result will contain 5. Now we want to start our looping from here. This is the second index, 0th index, 1th index, and this is the second index, right? So from index 2 we want to start, and we want to go up to index 4. The length of the list is 5, so it will go up to less than 5, that is 4, right? So first the value of I is 2. 2 is less than 5, well and good. So the result is already 5, as we have seen here. The result will be 5. 5 plus my list of index I. Index is 2, so my list of index 2 is 2. So result will store 5 plus 2, that is 7. Okay, and again this loop will run. The loop is from here to here, so it will continue until and unless this condition is found, that it is less than the length of my list, right? So next time the index becomes 3, as the step size, the default step size is 1, which we do not need to write. So next time the index will become 3 and the result was 7. So we want to add 7 plus my list of index 3, that is 5. So we'll get a result of 12, and in the next iteration the value of I will be 4. So we want to add 12 plus my list of index 4, that is 7, which will be equal to 19. Again I will be incremented and it will become 5. Now it will check the condition that 5 is less than 5, which is false. So it will go outside of the for loop and it will print the result 19. Well and good. Now there can be another way of writing this thing that most of the programmers do it. That they will do is result is assigned to 0, and they will start this for loop right from the 0th index and they will keep adding it to the result. They will not write this as because the default value for initialization is always 0 in case of for loop. Okay, so if we do this as well, print result result, yes. So if we do this as well, it will give us the same result, right? So why do we use result 0? Because 0 is the additive identity. Anything you suppose you add 0 to x, the value remains x. So we need to initialize whatever result we want. Suppose if we want the operation to be sum operation, then the identity is 0, so we assign result to 0. If we want this operation to be multiplication, then the identity becomes 1, so we want the result to be 1. Okay, so every time each element we keep adding. First of all, 0 plus 1, it becomes 1, then 1 plus 4, it becomes 5, and so on. It continues up to it reaches the end of the loop, end of the list, and it prints the result as 19. So this was another approach. But these two approaches, there is a simple approach in Python. So that is the magic of Python. We can write this whole thing in a single line of code. We can write it as result is equal to sum of my list. If we do this, it will directly print 19. So this sum operator takes a list, okay, and it returns the sum of all the elements of a list. See, 90. So this is what we can do with Python. It's a very handy thing. So we are done with finding sum of all the elements in a list. These were a few methods. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to do is find the smallest and the largest element in a list. Suppose we consider the same list, okay, and let us rearrange it a little. Let us write 2 here and let us write 1 here, such that it is not 7 here, and let us write 5 here. Okay, so this is our list. Now to find the smallest element in a list, we can clearly see that the smallest element in this list is 1, right? And the largest element in this list is 7. So one approach of solving this is we can sort the list either in ascending or descending order. So let me just insert a cell below. Okay, so let me write my list, or yes, my list is assigned to sort my list dot sort. Okay, so let me run this. I have not printed. Wait a second. My list. Okay, Yes, it is done this way. My list. No, wait a second. My list dot sort. I forgot the sort attribute. My list dot sort, right? So it was throwing some error because maybe I have not run this properly. So this is how it is done. Okay, so my list is now 1 2 4 5 7, so it is sorted now. So once we have sorted the list, the smallest element is at the first index and the largest element is at the last index. Similarly, the second largest element is at the second last index, right? So one thing we can directly do is, just a second, one thing we can directly do is we can write my list of index 1. So let me just print it. Print smallest element is my list of index 1 and the largest element is my list of index -1. See, -1 means the last element, okay, always while we are working with lists. So if we write -1, then it is the last element. If we write -2, then it is the second last element, and so on. So let me just rename this thing GST largest element. Okay, so let's run this. Smallest element is, it is not yet sorted. I don't know what is happening to me. This is not index 0. The first index, sorry, yes, the first index will be index 0, right? I was writing index 1 there. So this is a mistake. See, now the smallest element is 1 and the largest element is 7. It happens sometimes, so kindly excuse me. So smallest and the largest element, well and good. Yes, the other approach can be, we can sort this in descending order and we can just interchange this. We'll write the smallest element to be my list of -1 because the smallest, if we sort it in reverse order, in descending order, right, then the smallest element will be here and the largest element will be here. So we can just reverse this and we'll get it. But there is another way that we can find the smallest and the largest element, is by using the min and the max function, right? So let me just copy this thing and let me just copy this thing again. So if I just change this thing to min of my list, and if I just change this thing to max of my list, yes, so it will give me the smallest and the largest element. This is another way of finding the smallest and the largest element. Let's see. Yes, so this finding the smallest and the largest element in a list is done. These are the methods through which we can find the smallest and the largest element in a list. Now what about finding the index of the smallest and the largest element in a list? Suppose we have this list. Okay, we have this list. The index of the smallest element is, say, 0 1 2. So the index of the smallest element is 2 and the small index of the largest element is 3. Fine, we need to print these things, the index of the smallest and the largest element. So what we can do is, I'll just copy this thing So let me write here index of. Okay, so there is a function called index function. So my list dot index, and if we pass here, before this let me show you something. Insert cell above. Yes, suppose this is my list, okay, and I want to find my list dot index of, let's say 5. The index of 5 should be 4 here. 0 1 2 3 4, right? So it will give me 4 here. See, well and good. So this index function gives us the index of a particular element that we want, right? So mylist dot index, if we want the index of the minimum element of a list, then we have to write it this way, okay, and this, the last parenthesis will be for closing the print statement. So in this way we can find the index of the minimum element of a list, and in similar way we can find the index of the largest element in a list. We just have to replace this with max, so we will get it. So we get the index of the smallest element as 2 0 1 2 and the largest element as 3. So we have solved this problem as well, but there might be a question that what if the elements are duplicate. Suppose if we have one here as well, and if we have, let's say, 7 here as well. So 7 at index 0 and 7 at index 3 both are duplicated, and 1 at index 1 and 1 at index 2 both are duplicated. So which index will it return, as both are the minimum values, right? These two both are the minimum values and these two both are the maximum values. So it will return the first occurrence of the minimum value or the maximum value, whatever we are trying to find out. It will return the first occurrence. So now if we print the same thing, what we will get is the index of the minimum element will be 0 1, right? So the index will be 1, and the index of the maximum element will be this thing 7. Sorry, index will be 0. So let's run. So it is as expected, right? So well and good. Now let's learn how to find and replace elements in a string. Suppose we have a string named myString, and there I have written my name is Aditya, okay, and let me run this thing first. And now if I want to replace, suppose say I want to replace is, okay, let's first find is. So there is a function called find, my string dot find is. So what index will this thing return? You can find a single character as well, there is no problem with it, or you can find a set of characters, that is a string as well, okay. So the index that it will return is 0 1, the space is 2, now 3 4 5 6, again the space is 7, and then 8. So it will return 8 exactly, right? Now if you want to replace this, suppose if you want to replace the name with game, and if you want to replace Aditya with, suppose let's say golf, then what we can do is my string dot replace. And to replace we don't need to use this find. This find has a separate purpose, and in replace we can do both the find and the replace thing. We need to find the first parameter, that is name, and we have to replace it with the second parameter, that is the game, okay. And again my string dot replace Aditya with golf, golf. Okay, so let's do this. So my really okay, let me just comment this and see. Okay, fine. And what if I do this here? Okay, it is not being saved, so my we have to replicate it back. Yes, my string. So whatever the changes was made, we have to assign it back into my string. Okay, so now if we run this thing, it will run fine. Let me just show you. We can put these two things together as well here, and let me just print my string here. Okay, so let's run this. My game is golf. Well and good, right? So these strings needs replication. Whatever the changes was made here needs to be replicated to my string, that is this thing again. We need to assign it back. Okay, so this is how the find and the replace string works. So today, I don't know what was happening, but I made many mistakes. Really sorry for that, and it happens sometimes. So thanks for watching the video. If you like it, do hit the like and the subscribe button. Also share it with your friends. So thank you so much and keep supporting, guys. Bye bye.